as well as other people to talk about the whole issue of healthy sexual relationships as well as those unhealthy relationships, which become sexual assault and rape. After the documentary, we have a panel of experts who will talk to you about the issue of where is the line, boundaries, the whole issue of rape and consent. So I want you to think about where is your line. That's really important so that you not only view the documentary, but you leave here with some social action information.
Darling daughter, my guess is that he's not an unusually violent man, and that given the circumstances, he doesn't think he did anything wrong. That's what I'm afraid you will find hurtful. Are you prepared to hear that from him? Are you prepared to hear him try to lay you? In our country, we have come a long way. No means no, and a woman out alone is not an invitation. A woman has control over her body and her choices. I don't think the rest of the world yet goes along. I love you, and take care of yourself. Love, Mom.
I keep wondering if I should go back and meet with him face to face.
Did you talk about after he did it? Or it was like moment go away?
He did it. He just did it. I grew up in a quiet Philadelphia suburb in your garden variety American Jewish family. When my mother was my age, women were supposed to be virgins when they got married. Sex was for making babies with your husband. But I got a different sort of sexual education, and I watched it religiously. By the time I was 18, I was ready to leave my parents' house, and I was ready to have lots of sex. I moved to New York City. In college, we were into drugs, politics, and booty calls. I played varsity tennis, studied art history, and partied. I marched against rape and called myself a slut. Lil' Kim was my favorite rapper, and I discovered feminist porn. My friends and I did a lot of white powdery drugs and danced with the Go-Go Boys in Times Square. I was a group photographer, trying hard to be Nan Golden. Things got really bad. I started having an affair with my professor. I landed my dream job in film, and then got fired. Drugs were a problem off and on, and my roommate's boyfriend jumped off the 59th Street Bridge. My life was spinning out of control. I wanted to start over. I heard about a great job opening in Jerusalem, so I took a chance and moved there. Living in Jerusalem was a different story. Women covered their bodies when they went outside, and if I chose not to, it was uncomfortable. I learned that sexuality radiates out of a woman's hair or her eyes. Every part of a woman's body was potentially erotic, and anything exposed was a potential invitation. Part of me liked it, being covered. It reminded me that my body was sacred and shouldn't be shared with just anyone. I discovered belly dancing, a way to be sexy but also modest. My teacher Miriam was young and religious.
And in the Mizrahi world, in the Sephardi world, and the Arabic world, a woman is supposed to go out in her simple clothes and not put on a lot of makeup. And then when she comes home, she's supposed to put on her most beautiful clothes, her sexy clothes, and put on lipstick and makeup and be beautiful for what? For her husband to make, you know, a romantic feeling.
There was something beautiful about saving yourself for the one you love. Miriam got married. Following religious tradition, she married a man she barely knew and had never touched. She felt like he was the one for her. Maybe that's what I was looking for. I met Itai. We really connected. We stay up all night talking, we take trips to the desert. I fell in love. I thought he was the one. But Itai fell in love with someone else. I was crushed. A few weeks later at a party, I flirted with a guy I knew from work. I was so lonely. I thought it would help me get over Itai. I went home with him, but things took an unexpected turn. Wasn't it enough what we did? Why did he take more? You're so stupid. So stupid. Who's gonna understand? The eyes. Oh my God, that next morning, I couldn't stand the eyes. They leered, I could see it. I felt weak, vulnerable, dirty. Like anyone could take advantage of me. The next day. He came up to me in front of a group of people, like he was testing the waters. I could tell he wanted me to say everything was okay, and that what happened would stay between us. I told him to never speak to me again. He looked nervous. I quit my job. I left Jerusalem and moved back to New York. Back at home, it felt like my friends had all moved on. I had to start from scratch. I felt like such a failure.
I don't know what to think. Like, I'm your friend. I feel like I've had a lot of those kinds of situations too, you know what I mean? But they weren't rape.
Just because it hurts doesn't mean it was forced. And you have two people saying different things that you were both drinking.
I can't imagine forcing anyone into sex if they don't want it. But I gotta tell you, I feel kind of uncomfortable that you're telling me this. I mean, you've got a great ass.
There are girls out there that the way that he acted, that they would not perceive it as aggressively as you did. The important thing is how you feel. How do you perceive it, and how do you feel about it?
At a certain point, the confusion about what happened was as painful as the event itself.
He just did it, no finger. I didn't say no, and I didn't say stop, the word. I started screaming. He kept going. He came, pulled out, and left me crying like I was crying.
During this time, my friend Natanya was attacked and raped by a stranger in Brooklyn.
I walked in and everything was totally normal, and then he like grabbed me from behind and covered my mouth, and it was like, my whole reality just changed. It makes me scared, you know? It makes me scared. What's underneath that is that I'm terrified, you know? So that's scary that I still have that kind of terror. I have a file that I call events where I've kept things about the assault. Here are all the different cards, counselors, officers, negative for antibody to HIV-1 and HIV-2. These things were so helpful. I remember like rereading these when I was like really confused. That's probably the scariest thing I have in here. It's just this police sketch that was done.
After spending time with Natanya, I wanted to know what kind of options I had. Natanya's case was clear-cut. It was a stranger on a dark street. My situation was less defined. We were in bed already. I went to see a lawyer.
You gotta put up, like you have to prove it. You are the one who's under the spotlight.
You were single and dating, and you had an experience that was, in your mind, rape or a violation.
What? When I go to the police? No. I think the criminal justice system really solves things. I mean, I guess if I thought that this person was dangerous and might hurt another person, then I probably would.
This time, I went to an attorney who specialized in sexual assault. I read about him in Cosmo.
The jury system actually permits a rape-prone society. Using a jury to figure out a sex crime is the wrong system. I don't know that I have an answer what's a better system, but asking 12 witnesses, essentially, who weren't there, who didn't take part, to unravel this is near impossible. If you have done anything that places you in a position of vulnerability, that makes you something less than a perfect victim, is what I like to call it, you're doomed. You're not going to have a successful prosecution. If you drank, if you flirted, if you had sex with somebody before, I mean, you literally have to have this profile of a perfect victim. If I asked you for sex, and you said yes, but I now have permission to do anything to you sexually that I could possibly think of, believe me, there's a lot I can think of. And the answer is no, you have limits, and we all do. And so the idea is very intuitive if you think of it that way, that consent to one form of sexual activity isn't consent to every other form.
A friend told me about a former NFL quarterback who was now educating young men about masculinity and respecting women.
That's how sex is presented to boys. It's not an intimacy. It's not something that is intimate, that is loving, that is egalitarian, that we get something out of. It's what we do to the other.
Shoot these guys off! Come on! 75% of bitches down here use the alcohol as an excuse to fuck. 25% are just whores.
We raise women to survive in a rape culture because we raise women to know these things. Yet we do nothing to talk to men about not raping. But we do talk to women about how to protect themselves, which is further why we place the blame on women when something happens. Well, didn't you know not to do that? Didn't you know not to wear that dress? Or didn't you know not to walk down that street at that hour of the night?
Here's what happened. A coworker and I flirted at a party, and I decided to go home with him. We had a few drinks. He undressed me on the couch, and then we went to the bedroom. We started having sex. We were having sex, but then he turned me over, held me down, and sodomized me.
And then he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm always doing bad things. I'm sorry. And then he turned on the light and showed me pictures of his son.
That night, I tried to sleep. I was in his bed. He started snoring next to me. I was disgusted. How could he fall asleep after I had been screaming and crying? That's when I woke him up and asked him to drive me home. What would I get out of talking to him? Do I talk to him? Do I go to the police? I wanted to make sure that what happened to me couldn't happen again. I went to see women who write up a contract before having sex with men. They're professional negotiators who draw clear boundaries. Everything is agreed on before they get started. They're not lawyers, they're prostitutes.
It's funny what you need when you're in this business. So I've got my makeup case right here. I always do whatever we agree on. That's what I do. Exactly what I do. But then he wanted to finger my asshole and lick my asshole and this whole other thing. And so I told him he needs his credit card. I'm like, well, you gotta give me your credit card because it's not what we agreed on. So I'm like, you want to make another agreement? Let's do that.
My first intuition in the negotiation was that I really didn't want to party with him, and I quoted him high. And then when he went back out, he came back and got me, and he took the bait, and I didn't think that he would, and then I didn't know how to get out of the situation.
Even Mila, who makes a living from drawing clear sexual boundaries, sometimes has trouble.
I gotta run just for a second, but I'll be back.
I ended up telling Alexis my whole story.
I need to hold your hand. Okay, so now finish the story.
You know, it was totally about my fucked up judgment that I would like pick someone who basically totally snapped on me and turned into.
How could you know that though? How could you know that?
I not know that? I mean, it's so scary, but then you feel like, oh my God, well, how can I trust myself? I don't know. I guess I just felt really, you just worry about your own judgment or about how risky, I guess, just anything is. But then you made this interesting point of just like, we did other things without asking. I kissed you here, I lived you there, I didn't ask you. We did other things without asking.
Yeah, but that's, when you're talking about penetration, and I assume you've kissed somebody before, he's kissed somebody before. You know, he's played with a girl's boobs, you've touched a guy's cock, but he doesn't know if you've been fucked in the ass.
It was a relief to share my story with someone who really understood that what happened to me was a violation. Even if I approached him that night, flirted, and went home with him, he still crossed a line. Natanya was on her way to court. The police had found her attacker, arrested him, and put him in jail. She was preparing a letter to read to him.
My name is Natanya Ullman. I'm 31 years old, and I grew up in New York City. My whole relationship to New York City changed drastically when you attacked me in October 2004. There are many ways I've healed, and there are many ways I'm still healing. I do not have faith or investment in the criminal justice system, but I'm glad to see what feels like justice to be served today.
I had to confront what happened to me. He's the only one I can ask. He's the only one that was there with me. What does he think happened? The night when we were together, we were alone and there were no witnesses. I'm bringing a camera so that it can record the truth.
Oh, wow. Where's the mic?
Just for now.
Okay.
We're going to put it later on. Nervous?
Yes.
Don't be.
Well.
They're all the right, so don't be.
Yeah. A little nervous, I mean, but I'll hopefully be able to have the opportunity to say what I want to say, and maybe he'll surprise me and say something I didn't expect.
I've never done that before, ever. I've trained with it, hurt a lot, and again.
from me, looking me in the eye, he was just another human being who remembered it differently than I did. But I know what happened that night. What does it mean if he can't remember? He looks uncomfortable. He's moving around in his chair. He must know what he did. God, I hate this part, when he leans in towards me. Why didn't he ask my permission before he did it?
That night you raped me.
I needed to tell him he violated me, and I wanted to know why. Why did that happen? Why did he do it? I didn't get any answers from him, but all the same, I felt strong. I had faced the person who scared me the most. I've learned to be careful about who I'm intimate with, and I'm clear about what I do and don't want sexually. The more comfortable I am in my own skin, the more present I can be to give consent, to seek pleasure, and to choose a partner who respects my line, wherever it may be. Along this journey, I found something beautiful. I met someone and felt like I could tell him everything. I didn't feel ashamed. He's a cameraman. He even shot some of this movie.
I've never had a tail on the side.
We'll trim that, no problem.
Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, a woman going to the police station to report a rape might have been sent home. Natanya watched as her attacker was sentenced to prison. What recourse did I have? That night, I was unlucky. I chose to go home with someone who ignored my screams and used force. I never had the chance to say yes or no. Until I sat across from him and faced him, every man could potentially do the same thing. I'm glad I did it, not because it made my situation better, but because he might think twice the next time. Most cases of sexual abuse fall somewhere between Natanya's and mine. How do we make sure we respect the line?
Hopefully some questions, some thoughts have come to your mind after watching that documentary. And we have a panel of experts that I'm going to ask to come forward. Janetta Mock, who's the victim advocate at our Women's Center. Terrence Martin is with the State Attorney's Office. He prosecutes sexual battery cases. And Lieutenant James Grimes is with our University Police Department. Please welcome them. Anytime you have any questions, any comments you'd like to make, if you'd like to make a statement and start a dialogue, we welcome it. I'll just start it off by asking each of our panelists to give a brief statement about what is rape. Anyone can start.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Terrence Martin. I've been prosecuting these types of cases for about the last 15 years or so, maybe about 18 years. In the state of Florida, as opposed to Georgia. Georgia, they call it rape. Here we use the term sexual battery. And in the state of Florida, sexual battery is an offense wherein there's any type of penile vaginal penetration or contact. Years ago, the rape was essentially, there had to be some type of penetration. And throughout the 70s and again throughout the 90s, they broadened the definition, and it included penile vaginal penetration or contact, oral sex, mouth, vagina, vagina, mouth, mouth, penis, whatever. That's all considered sexual battery in the state. And that's the first element. The second element is that I, as a prosecutor, have to prove that there was no consent. There was not consent given. This, I always say that sexual battery is the only kind of case that I ever prosecute where the jury, in the film they mentioned 6 people. Here in Florida it's normally 12 people, excuse me. Here in Florida it's 6 people that sit on a jury. This is the only type of offense, as opposed to a home burglary, auto theft, shoplifting, any type of case like that I present. You know, I get up an opening argument, opening statement, and I said, on such and such a day, this person broke into the house, or they went into the store, or they stole the car. This is the only type of case where the jury, whereas some of those other types of case, the jury is essentially, you know, they immediately turn to the defendant, and that's like, you know, how dare you? And, you know, you better have something to prove that you didn't do it. On sexual battery, this is the only kind of case where the jury is waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just like the movie said, you know, what was she wearing? What was she doing? What was she doing out late that night? Why were they drinking? You know, all the questions are back on the state. There's this entire level of disbelief. In an adult case, it's different for a child case, that you wouldn't normally have in any other type of crime. So that's essentially what rape or sexual battery is in Florida, that there was some type of sexual act and that there wasn't any consent.
As far as the police go, you know, we have to make our cases within the law. His burden of proof is that beyond a reasonable doubt it happened. Ours is probable cause. So we investigate a report of a sexual battery. We just have to decide, would a reasonable person believe this happened? So, you know, that's where we document through our reports, and if we're going to make an arrest, make an arrest. Most of the time in sexual battery cases, we will not make an arrest until the state attorney tells us that they have enough to file a charge. You know, other cases, sometimes we make them right off the bat. Most of the time in sexual battery, we let the state attorney make that call for us. We just document, get all the evidence together, and take it to them. So that's what we're looking for. Would a reasonable person believe this happened? And that's what we build the case on.
Well, I think they said it all. As a victim advocate, when a victim comes to the Women's Center and he or she says they have been raped, we look at it as they have been sexually assaulted or sexual battery according to Florida's law without giving consent. And that's just the bottom line up front, and that's how we look at it as a victim advocate. The person didn't give the consent or give permission to do such an act to them in accordance with the definition of the Florida statute of what rape and sexual battery is.
And going back to the movie, the friend of the main victim, Natalia, was it, who was apparently attacked in the subway station, and it was a stranger. And I don't have any numbers or statistics on this, but I know before I went in to handling exclusively these types of cases, that I kind of had in my mind, like most folks do. And if you've ever, watched any TV shows or or seen, you know, you watch some of the shows on CNN, Nancy Grace, etc., not meaning to be flip about it at all. The missing child of the day,